How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to episode 3 of my arc building tips and tricks series, where in each video I'll be showing you 10 tips or tricks that I like to use when I'm building an arc. But before we start, I'd just like to say, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell if you want to stay up to date with all my latest videos. Now that that's out the way, here are 10 more tips and tricks for building an arc. Tip number 1. Creating fences using fence supports. This one's fairly simple. We're going to start by placing fence supports along the ground. We're going to snap them into place by using the control below. Continue snapping fence supports in place until you get a desired length. Once we're happy with the length, we can then add pillars on either side. Next, place some walls on the fence foundations. I've flipped mine so that the wood's facing outwards. Then finally, place some railings along the top. And here are a few designs I came up with using this method. The first one has the walls flipped the opposite direction. On this one, I've extended the height, I've added some stone railings, and I've detailed the pillars with some ladders. Next, we've changed the material used to stone and added some artifact pedestals to the pillars. Again, I've changed the materials, but this time I've used metal. I've added 3 rows of railings to give us a more pen-like feel. And lastly, I've used a combination of materials and I've added a gate in the middle. Tip number 2. How to stack water reservoirs. First, we need to place a straight water pipe on the ground. Then we need to place an inclined water pipe coming out from that, followed by another straight water pipe. Next, place another inclined pipe coming back on itself. Then place a vertical water pipe coming down, followed by another straight water pipe. You can then go ahead and demolish the highlighted pipes. Okay, let's repeat this process one more time. Place an inclined water pipe, followed by a straight water pipe, then another inclined pipe coming back on itself, followed by a vertical pipe coming down and a straight pipe coming back. You can then go ahead and demolish the first 4 pipes. Now it's just a case of repeating this process until you get your desired height. The next part's pretty important. We need to make sure we place a vertical pipe on each of the straight pipes. This will then allow us to stack our water reservoirs on top of each other. You can then go ahead and demolish the straight water pipes. You can see here this technique also works with the metal water reservoirs. And here's a quick example where I've stacked the reservoirs to create a nice looking gateway. Tip number 3. How to stack foundations. The technique we're going to use to do this is very similar to the method we used for raising foundations in the previous video. First, we need to place 2 walls on the side of the foundation. Then place a ceiling on top. Then we want to find the lowest snap point for the pillar. And then place another pillar into the foundation. This will give us a higher snap point for the next foundation. Place it down. You can then go ahead and demolish the highlighted items. Then place your second row of foundations on the higher snap point. Then simply rinse and repeat, adding an additional layer of foundations each time. The most I've been able to stack on official settings is 6. Let me know in the comment section below if you managed to beat that. Tip number 4. Placing hatch frames correctly. You've probably experienced this issue before, when you've built a house and you want to put a hatch frame down to get to the second floor. However, no matter how many times you cycle through the snap points, you can't get the ladder to place where you want it, and you end up placing it wherever you can. There's a simple explanation for this, which I'll try and demonstrate now. A hatch frame only has one snap point for a ladder. Therefore, depending on what wall the hatch frame is connected to, that will determine where the ladder ends up. So with that in mind, if you want a ladder at the back, you need to connect the hatch frame to the left hand side. And if you want a ladder on the right, we need to place the hatch frame on the back snap point. If you want a ladder facing the front, we need to snap the hatch frame to the right hand snap point. And finally, if we want a ladder facing the left hand side, we need to snap the hatch frame to the front snap point. As an example, I've built my house and I want to place a hatch frame with the ladder facing the back. Most of the time you'll place the hatch frame down like so, and you only have a snap point on the right hand side. So what we need to do is pick up the hatch frame. We could then place some thatch walls on the left hand side because this is the snap point we want. We then place the hatch frame on the left hand snap point, which is the thatched walls. Now we have a new snap point at the back. We can then go ahead and demolish the temporary walls. Tip number 5. How to offset foundations. As you know, a foundation will only snap to another foundation in one way. I'm going to show you how to create a new snap point which will allow you to offset foundations. There's two methods we're going to use, one for the front and back and one for the sides. Let's start with the sides first because this is the easiest of the two. Place a pillar between two of the foundations. You'll see the pillar has two snap points. We want the highest one. This pillar will then create another snap point, allowing us to offset the foundations. We can then go ahead and demolish the pillar. Let's repeat that on the left hand side. Start by placing the pillar in between the two foundations at the highest snap point. This will create a new snap point allowing you to offset the foundations. You can then go ahead and demolish the pillar. Now let's move on to how we do this at the front and the back. Because foundations only have two snap points, we're unable to place the pillar in between the two foundations, so we need to create our own snap point. So first, place a wooden fence foundation in between the two foundations. This will then allow us to place our pillar in between the two foundations. This creates a new snap point so we can now offset the foundations. Because we used the fence foundation to create our snap point, the foundation has been placed slightly lower. We can raise the height of this by adding two metal walls, followed by a ceiling on top. Place a pillar at the lowest snap point, and then place another pillar into the foundation. This will give you a higher snap point for the next foundation. You can then go ahead and demolish all the highlighted items. You can then continue with the rest of your foundations. This method also works with the triangle foundations. I use this technique to make the bay windows and the porch on my Creative house build. Tip number 6. Intersecting walls. As always, the first thing we're going to do is place some ladders. This is going to help us line up some fence supports. Now grab the ladder to centre your character, then place a fence support where you want your first wall to be. Next, snap fence supports. This will be the length of your wall. And repeat this on the other side. We can now go ahead and demolish the ladders as we don't need these anymore. We've now got two rows of fence supports overlapping each other. Next, place a wall on one of the fence supports. Then place door frames on the overlapping fence supports. We can then continue with our walls. Next, replace the door frames with walls. We can also intersect walls on the ground without the need for foundations. First, I'm going to place down a pillar and add some ladders to help me keep things straight. Grab your first ladder, and then place down your first fence support. Jump down, grab the next ladder, and then place your second fence support. Now take some time doing this, making sure it's central. Then snap some door frames to the fence foundations. Continue with door frames until you get your desired height. I'm going to make this one 3 high. Next, replace the door frames with walls. As you can see here, there really is no limit on how many walls you can intersect using this method. Tip number 7. Creating decorative pillars. There are lots of ways to decorate pillars. I'm going to show you a few that I like to use when I'm building. First, we're going to start by placing a stone pillar. Next, place a ladder. Again, we're going to use this to keep our character nice and straight. Then place an artifact pedestal on top of the pillar. Take your time to make sure you get this in the middle. Then place another pillar on top. And then repeat this process until you get your desired height. You can then demolish the ladder once you're done. This next design is very similar to the first, however we're going to add an additional step. Start by placing down the pillar. We're going to use wood this time. Then add your ladder. Grab the ladder once again to centralise your character. Then place an artifact pedestal on top of the pillar. Now this time we're going to add an artifact to the pedestal. Then continue with your pillars and pedestals until you get your desired height. You can then go ahead and demolish the ladder. This design looks great on a night time. I found it best to use the taller artifacts because the pillars hide them better. And here you can see the design in different materials. My personal preference is the wood and the metal. Another way to create nice looking pillars is to simply place ladders on all 4 sides. Let's try this with metal pillars and metal ladders. And here's a few examples using different materials. My 2 personal favourites is the stone pillars with the wooden ladders and the metal pillars with the tech ladders. Another good idea is to use mixed materials. I'm going to start by placing down a stone pillar first, and then we're going to place some wooden pillars on top. Let's try another combination. Let's start with a metal pillar at the base, and then we'll add some tech pillars on top of that. Try experimenting with different materials. I find it looks better with a thicker pillar at the bottom and thinner pillars on the top. And here we have a few examples of some of the designs I've used in some of my previous builds. Tip number 8. Creating double walls using sloped walls. Let's start by selecting a thatched sloped left wall. It's worth noting at this point, this technique only works with sloped left walls. You can use other materials, but I use thatch because it'll be demolished a little bit later on. Next, flip it using the control below, and then repeat this process around the outside of the build. Now select a wall of your choice. By placing the sloped walls, we've now created 2 snap points. We're looking for the inside snap point. We then need to flip our wall using the command below. Repeat this process along the inside of the build, selecting the inner snap point and flipping the walls as you go. Now head around to the outside of the build and replace the thatched walls with a wall of your choice. What I really like about this method for doubling walls is both the walls remain the same height. Tip number 9. Creating bay windows. We're going to be using 2 of the previous techniques from this video to create our bay windows. Let's start by placing a pillar in between 2 of the foundations, ensuring it's on the highest snap point. This will allow us to offset some triangle foundations in the middle. We can then go ahead and demolish or pick up the wooden pillar. Next, place some walls to your desired height. Next, select the thatched slope left wall and then flip it. Repeat this on all of the triangle foundations. Then place a wall on the inner snap point and then flip it. Repeat this on all the triangle foundations. Then replace the thatched walls with a wall of your choice. Then place some greenhouse walls on the inner snap point. Followed by some double door frames on the outer snap points. And finally place some triangle roofs on the top. And here's a few examples of bay window designs. I've used a mix of materials and door frames to give each one of them its own unique look and feel. I recently used this technique on one of my live streams to create an old rundown mansion. Tip number 10. How to hide water pipes and taps. So let's say this is our greenhouse design and we want to add some water to the crop plots. We also want to hide the pipes and the water taps. We could just simply place the pipes on the floor, however we need really flat ground to do this and you always run into the problem of having obstructed pipes. There is a better way of doing this and I'll show you how to do it now. So let's pick up the pipes to start. Then place a wooden ladder. We're going to use this ladder to centre our character. Next, grab the ladder and then place down some wooden stairs. This will then allow us to choose the height of our pipes. I like to go for somewhere in the middle, but depending on the height of the ground, you can make it higher or lower. Then demolish or pick up the ladder and the wooden stairs, as we no longer need these. You can then place some water pipe intersections along the length of your greenhouse. Then connect the water pipe to a water source. Next, add some taps on both sides of the water pipes. I also like to add some taps in the middle just for good measure. We can then cover the taps and the pipes with some foundations. Even though they're covered by the foundations, they'll still provide irrigation for the crop plots. Simply add your seeds and your fertiliser, sit back and watch them grow. And here's a few bonus tips about large crop plots. Here's a few facts about large crop plots that you may or may not already know. Did you know that large crop plots are stackable? They also provide full irrigation without the need for a water source. And there we have it. That was 10 more tips and tricks for building an ark. Hopefully you found some of these tips useful and you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, it really does help out the channel. As I've said in previous videos, this is a series that I really want to continue, so expect some more building tips and tricks videos shortly on the channel. In the meantime, why not get your daily building fix by jumping into my Discord server and joining our ever-growing building community. Now all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.